Think of Bondi Beach. What comes to mind? Sun, sand, pure joy, right? Well, on December 14th, 2025, that iconic image was shattered. A festival of light was plunged into an absolutely terrifying darkness. That's how one survivor described what he saw at Bondi Beach. I mean, just listen to those words. Pure evil. An absolute bloodbath. It's hard to even imagine, especially when you realize what was happening just moments before. It was the first night of Hanukkah, a celebration called Hanukkah by the Sea. You had families, kids getting their faces painted, even a petting zoo. It was the picture of perfect, peaceful community. And then, just after 6:45 in the evening, as the sun was starting to set, it all ended. The sounds of celebration were just shattered by gunfire. People described sheer chaos. Folks in bathing suits running from the water, dropping everything, just trying to escape the violence that erupted out of absolutely nowhere. So let's break this down. A celebration shattered. How did a festival of light get plunged into such darkness? This wasn't random. It was a deliberate attack on a peaceful gathering, and it would leave a permanent scar on the heart of the entire country. We're talking about a huge crowd. Nearly 1,000 people were there in Archer Park, right by the beach, so, this wasn't some small get-together. It was a major community event, packed with men, women, and kids, all just there to enjoy the start of the holiday. The authorities didn't hesitate. They called it what it was: a terrorist attack. Motivated by anti-Semitism, inspired by ISIS ideology. You had 2 gunmen armed with a rifle and 2 shotguns who deliberately targeted this Jewish celebration. And the result? It became the single deadliest act of terror in Australia's history. Just staggering. And here's the human cost. It's just devastating to look at. 16 people were killed. That includes one of the gunmen who was shot by police. On top of that, 43 people were injured, and a lot of them were rushed to the hospital in critical condition. The scale of the tragedy is just immense. Okay, so this brings us to the warning signs, and the huge question everyone was asking. In a country with some of the strictest gun laws in the world, how did this happen? How is this even possible? And let me tell you, the answer is a lot more complicated than you might think. Because, let's be honest, most of us thought Australia was safe from this kind of thing, right? The common idea, both in Australia and around the world, was that they'd basically solved their mass shooting problem. After a terrible massacre back in 1996, they brought in these huge gun reforms, and for almost 30 years, it looked like they had worked. But this is where the popular story starts to fall apart. You've got the myth, which is that the 1996 laws fixed everything. And then you have the reality. The truth is, gun ownership never went away. It actually grew. Just look at New South Wales, the state where Bondi is. Gun licenses there climbed from about 181,000 in 2001 all the way up to 260,000 by 2025. That's a huge increase. And that's not the only warning sign. Take a look at this. It's another crucial piece of the puzzle. In the year just before the attack, Australia saw a massive surge, more than a 3-fold increase in anti-Semitic incidents. We're talking assaults, vandalism, threats. Synagogues were being set on fire. Jewish businesses were being defaced. It was this rising tide of hate, and it created the perfect environment for something terrible to happen. So, who did this? The police identified them as a father and son. And when you look at the details, it's just a chilling story of system failures. The father, Sajid Akram, was killed by police. And get this, he was a licensed gun owner. He legally had 6 firearms in his home. His son, Naveed, was arrested. But here's the kicker. The son had already been investigated by Australia's spy agency, ASO, for possible links to ISIS. So let's just put that together. A known extremist living in a house with a small, legal arsenal. I mean, the warning signs don't get much clearer than that. All right, let's go back to the attack itself. It lasted for just 10 minutes. 10 minutes of terror. But in that incredibly short amount of time, lives were destroyed and heroes were born. It's so important to remember that these aren't just numbers. They were people. The victims ranged from a 10-year-old girl to an 87-year-old. One of them was Rabbi Eli Schlanger, who helped organize the whole event. And then there's the just heartbreaking story of Alexander Kleitman, a Holocaust survivor who died shielding his wife from the gunfire. It's just unimaginable. But even in the middle of all that chaos, in the face of what one survivor called pure evil, something amazing happened. The best of humanity showed up. Regular, ordinary people did extraordinary things, risking their own lives to save complete strangers. And you have to hear the story of Ahmed al-Ahmed. This guy, he's a 42-year-old father of two, owns a fruit shop. He saw the gunfire and he didn't run away. He ran towards it. He tackled one of the gunmen. He wrestled the gun out of his hands. He literally disarmed the shooter. He got shot in the shoulder doing it, but he survived. And there is no doubt that his actions saved so many lives that day. A true hero. So in the aftermath, the shock turned into grief. And that grief turned into a national reckoning. This attack forced the entire country of Australia to confront some really tough questions about security, about its own identity, and about how this could have happened. The Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, didn't hold back at all. He called it what it was, an act of pure evil, an act of anti-Semitism, an act of terrorism on our shores. He wasn't just talking about violence. He was framing this as an attack on Australia itself, a hateful act in a place that's supposed to be all about joy. And this timeline really puts it all into perspective. You see that big event in 1996? That's the Port Arthur massacre, which led to the strict gun laws. Then look at the next period, from 97 to 2024. Basically nothing. Mass shootings on that scale just stopped. Then you get to 2025, Bondi Beach. It didn't just shatter that long period of peace. It became the second deadliest mass shooting in the country's modern history. So the big question became, what do we do now? And the response was pretty immediate. Leaders started proposing real, concrete changes to the gun laws. Things like limiting the number of guns one person can own, getting rid of lifelong licenses and making people get reviewed periodically, and crucially, using better intelligence and background checks. There was even talk about barring non-citizens from getting licenses. But beyond all the politics and policy debates, maybe the most powerful response came from the community itself. An attack like this is designed to create fear, to divide people. But the message that came back was the exact opposite. It was about resolve, about unity, about finding light in the darkness. And this quote from Rabbi Levi Wolf, it just says it all. Remember, this attack happened during Hanukkah, the festival of lights. His message was that their light will not be dimmed, that a little bit of light can drive out a whole lot of darkness. It was this incredibly powerful, defiant promise that hate wouldn't win. The shooting is over. The immediate danger is gone. But the wounds, both the ones you can see and the ones you can't, they're going to last a lifetime. And so the attack at Bondi Beach leaves us all with a really profound question. It's not just for the people of Sydney, but for any of us. When something this terrible happens, how do you even begin to heal?